So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host, Julia.
And I'm Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
All right, so Barry and I just can't seem to get away from the year 1986, and we decided to watch the movie Cobra with Sylvester Stallone.
Society is breeding a new kind of criminal. It's also breeding a new kind of cop. Meet Cobra. He does the job nobody wants.
Did you use unnecessary deadly force?
I used everything I had.
Do you know you have an attitude problem?
Yeah, but it's just a little one. You think you would recognize me if you saw him again?
The tall one?
Yeah. The one that wants to kill you.
Do what you have to do to get a lead on this maniac.
And if I find him?
Do what you do best.
Stallone is Cobra, the strong arm of the law.
I wanted to watch the film because the film has an anniversary, and I love writing about films that have anniversaries. This film is now 30 years old, my goodness, and it certainly made a big impact on me. I did not see it when it came out. It was a little too young, but I was very aware of this film.
You were too young? I didn't think you were too young for any movies.
No, this one, Mom would not let me see this one. Although at this point in my life, I had a Rambo poster up in my bedroom. That's true. And Rocky IV was a movie I watched in rotation all the time, every chance I had. This is the film.
This explains so much.
So much. Because I'm a boxer, as you know. Basically, I've followed his entire life. No, I mean, I love Stallone. I mean, what can I say? He was one of these movie stars that just really connected with me. I loved his films. Thankfully, over the last couple years, he's gone back to acting. Character acting. He's not simply allowing his presence and
his
playing
muscles
his
to
muscles
just do the work
and playing these monosyllabic characters who barely say anything. No, he's actually I love him now. He's really easy to love now because he plays characters who are vulnerable and flawed and kind of tragic. He plays like these wounded warriors. I love that. This is back when no, he would never play a vulnerable character.
No, he's too well coiffed and chiseled.
We'll talk about that a little more, but yeah, this is Stallone. It kind of he's at the top of his powers, but it's also kind of when his career started to take a really long slide down, and it took a while for him to get out of it. This is back when he was getting paid around. The film he did right after this was Over the Top. It's from the same company, and he got paid $15 million. And there was a period where he was getting paid $20 million a movie. And these are some of the worst films he's ever made. And and not to say that they're not.
I wish I could get paid a lot of money just for
to make bad movies.
My worst work.
I know, right?
I have to be at the top of my game.
But think about it, Julie. I mean, your worst work is what an article that didn't fly, or an assignment.
That's true. I didn't bomb
your worst
in front
work
of
isn't,
the world.
Yeah, your worst work isn't Judge Dredd. Your worst work isn't The Specialist. But this is the problem with being a movie star. Everybody sees your work, and it's out there for everyone to scrutinize. And for
but then you're a millionaire, so
yeah. But then you got schmucks like us, ridiculing your worst work on a podcast, But no, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Stallone. I am, but this film, to jump to it, I mean, for me, he's the best and worst thing about it. He's the best thing because his presence in this thing is awesome. He is 100% a total stud movie star in this. The worst thing is that he wrote the film.
Okay, this movie is insane. Literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At one point, I was like, is this a horror movie? There's so many gruesome parts.
Yeah, it's gross. It's so gross
a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, there was one year that we watched, I don't know, almost all of Stallone's movies, and this was not one of them. So this was my first time.
And how would you say it holds up to the oeuvre, the body of work that is Sly?
It's not my favorite. I still love Over the Top way more.
Is that your favorite Stallone movie? Be honest.
I mean,
it is, isn't it?
It kind of
Over
is.
the Top. Wow. Not Rocky, not Over the Top.
Yeah,
The arm wrestling one.
I think it is. Let's be real.
Wow.
I know. It's not that I don't love other things he's done.
Sure,
I do. But this one is so creepy that it's hard for me to love. So
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Put that out there.
So let's start from the top. I mean, the movie just takes no time to get started. It takes place in this little grocery store in Los Angeles, California. This is the 80s, so things are...
Oh, but it opens with all these like crime statistics.
Oh, wow, you're going that far back.
But
Okay,
do you
yes.
remember that? And
I
it was
do.
like
It's crazy.
every 12 seconds someone gets robbed. I mean, it just starts really dark.
Yeah, it's like a PSA, but the thing is, I mean, it's an intense close-up of a gun being loaded, and it's Stallone, like, every 5 seconds, someone is mugged. Every 2 seconds, a baby is slapped. Every 8 seconds, a puppy is neglected. Every 9 seconds, a car is dinged by somebody. Every 12 seconds, someone it goes on. It's like, is this going to be a fun movie, Mr. Stallone?
Yeah, no, it starts off dark. I mean, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what are we getting into?
So yeah, so it starts with that, and by the way, like, just, I mean, it's not just the gun being loaded. We see the gun, the trajectory, the bullet is like flying at us. Then it says Cobra.
Yeah. So we see this guy on a motorcycle park in a handicap spot, and for a second I said,
Is that Stallone?
yeah, because you can't see his face, and you were like, no, because he wouldn't do something.
He's the hero. He
Yeah.
wouldn't park in a handicap spot.
He wouldn't do that. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So this crazy guy goes into the supermarket and just starts shooting things up, and it gets crazy from there.
Yeah, there's no way this scene or many scenes in Cobra would fly today. It's extremely gratuitous. It's graphic. It's intense is what it is. The music is intense. The tone is intense. The people in the store are cowering and they're terrified. The guy doing the shooting, and I had to write it down because I'm like, this guy is great. His name is Marco Rodriguez. He's credited as the supermarket killer. Oh my God, this is like the Olivier of crazed performances, like drugged out eyes, scary face, like everybody on the floor. Like, oh, it's great. He kills it.
Yes.
Literally.
So all the cops show up, and it's a hostage
crisis.
situation.
Yep.
Yeah. And after a while, they're like, "Do we need to call Cobra?"
They call the Cobra.
Yeah, call Cobra. And they're kind of like reluctant to do it, but they're like, "We need help."
So who comes roaring up in his old school car with the curious license plate that says Awesome 50?
Yeah. A license plate on an old-timey looking car. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
So Stallone comes out, and we'll talk more specifically about it and why it's interesting. But so Mr. Stallone, I mean, he answers the screen. He's wearing aviator sunglasses, which he does not take off for, I think, the first hour of the film.
It's not an hour.
Okay, well,
the whole
it feels
movie's
like
90 minutes.
Okay, sorry. But it feels like
The first 15 minutes, he's wearing
it's
these.
got to be longer than that,
It
Schultz.
feels
It's a long time. We don't see this guy's eyes for most of this film, okay? He gets out of the car, and he's wearing the sunglasses, black leather jacket. He's wearing black leather gloves. He's got not a toothpick. He's got a match that he's holding into his jaw, like it's a cigar. And of course, he's got this state-of-the-art gun with the little red finder. I gotta say, like, I guess just to talk about this, then, is this where the Schwarzenegger-Stallone rivalry began? Because clearly Stallone watched The Terminator and then took the poster to the costume department. He's like, "Yep, that's my costume. I'm gonna dress like that." But Mr. Stallone, you're playing a cop. No, that's what I want right there.
I want to be in all black.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in a lot of gunfights lately, at least.
Oh, okay.
But, the last one I was in, it's not good, especially when you're indoors, to wear aviator sunglasses during a gunfight. But he goes into this dark supermarket with these sunglasses on, and he has,
he drinks a beer.
his version of a great plug for Coors Light, by the way. And it feels off right from the beginning, and I certainly blame Mr. Stallone because tonally it's very intense. It's violent. The way it's shot and cut is very tense. But Stallone, the one-liners are nonstop. Mm-hmm. It's a problem because it's not like Clint Eastwood, and clearly Stallone looked at Eastwood when he thought about this character. It's not like Eastwood kind of deflecting with little quips. I mean, these are really funny lines that are really out of place. It doesn't diffuse the situation. It's like Mr. Stallone's in a completely different movie. Mm. And to jump to it, he not only dispatches the bad guy, which he does, of course, because Stallone never misses in this movie.
No, he kills every.
He shoots the bad guy. He twirls his gun like he's Tom Mix, and then he puts it in his crotch, and there's a close-up of the handle of the gun that has a Cobra on it. And I'm thinking, what kind of movie is this? This feels like a parody. like, are you putting us on, Mr. Stallone? Because, again, like, the film is tense. His performance seems half serious, and it's a problem,
It's so intense because all the bad guys are playing like really bad guys.
Yeah, they're really
like evil, scary
guys,
people, you know. And at one point, the supermarket killer tells a guy he can go free, and he's like, "Get out of here, you're free." And he walks down the aisle and then shoots him in the back.
And he collapses dead into a Christmas tree.
Yeah, I mean, very intense situation, and you know, everyone is clearly traumatized, and Stallone's just like walking through like, no big deal, I'm here to save the day.
Well, the line that I always remember that it's so great is, you know, the killer is going to talk about, you know, shooting everything up, and Stallone's like, "It's okay, I don't shop here."
Yeah, because he's like, I'm going to shoot. Yeah, I'm going to destroy this place.
And this is kind of one of these legendary things about Mr. Stallone. And again, respect, you know, I don't need to say respectfully too many more times. Clearly, I love the guy, but some of these movies are very easy to pick on. He famously tried to do comedy at one point, and it didn't work. He did Oscar, which I liked. No one saw it.
Oh, I love that movie.
I like Oscar too, yeah. But he did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which was famously a disaster. Okay. He did Rhinestone was a disaster. He did one movie that I think is his best comedy, and people don't even call it a comedy. It's Demolition Man. It's hilarious.
Oh yeah, Demolition Man is good. But people should watch Oscar. If they like
Oscar's
those
good.
door closing kind of English farces, it's fun. Yeah. It's a fun movie.
It's good, yeah, and he's very good in it. But anyway, comedy, I think Stallone thinks he's funny, and he is, but it has to be, you know, in the context of the film, this is as dark as it gets. This is darker than Rambo, but he's playing it like it's a quippy sort of Western. Yeah.
So, all right. There's some weird scenes also in the beginning.
We should talk about the gang.
Yeah, where these guys with axes, and they're like holding them over their heads and like clapping them together. Like it's some weird, I don't know.
I mean, frankly, it just looks like a CrossFit class is what it looks like.
No, it's some like weird cross between a biker gang or some like cult fraternity gone dark. I don't even know, but it's bizarre.
They clang their clangers together like it's the opening of Queen's We Will Rock You, and they do it nonstop. And I don't know, it doesn't look like a fun gang to be a part of. I mean, it's funny though, if you look very closely at the opening scenes of these guys doing it, there's one guy in a full suit and tie. He's like a yuppie who's there like, it's my lunch break. I'll do the whole clang thing with my New World bros. But the name of the gang is the New World. It's never, I mean, apparently there's a longer version of this movie.
We don't know
God help us.
what their like deal is. Really.
Yeah, I don't know if it got lost in the editing room, but yeah, what their motive is, what their motivation is. Is this a Charles Manson sort of thing?
Mission?
Is this like a Jim Jones sort of thing? Like, what is this? We never know.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We just know that they're evil. They're primarily bikers, except for the one yuppie. Maybe he was like the lawyer for the gang.
Yeah, maybe.
I hate this gig, man. I hate representing the New World, but. Yeah, so they're bad. They're bad dudes, and the leader of them is a guy who goes by the Night Slasher. Night Slasher.
Yeah, he is creepy. He's got a very good bad guy face.
Oh, such a great bad guy face.
It's really, it's a little bit unnerving, actually.
Brian Thompson. Oh, fantastic. And yeah, he's still with us. He's 62 years old. Yeah.
Wow, he still looks like that. Like he looks like that in real life.
He's a handsome dude, but I mean, let's fit. Okay, well, if you don't have to be nice.
He scared me too much.
Well, he's a character actor, dude. He's not that in real life.
It was really scary.
And interestingly enough, he was a street punk in The Terminator.
Oh.
which he did back to back with Cobra. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So Cobra leaves the scene of the supermarket and drives home.
His superiors immediately, it's one of these things of, the kind of, we see this in cop movies a lot where it's like, you destroyed public property, you killed the perp, people are traumatized, but well done, Cobra.
Yeah. I did what I had to do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so he goes home, and it's the first of two extremely awkward comedic bits with a question mark, where Stallone has a parking spot by his house, and there's always a group.
There's always
I guess they're supposed to be gangbangers who are always taking his spot, so he
forces his car into their spot by
he hits the accelerator, by his car moves their car out of the way, and they threaten to kill him, and he just steps out of the car. He's like, "Whoa, sorry," real ego dusting from Mr. Stallone here.
Yeah, but the funny part, and when I was talking to your brother, I told him we were watching this movie, and he said, "Oh, is that pizza scissors?" And I started laughing because when he goes home, there's a pizza box in his house, and he sits down at his desk, opens the box, cuts a piece off with some scissors.
The end, by the way.
The end of
the
the
triangular
pizza.
end, yeah.
And that's the only part he eats.
There's a few reasons for this. I mean, maybe this is just the way Cobra eats it. Like, this is the best part. Why eat the rest? I don't eat the crust. I eat the end
Cut it
part.
with scissors?
Here's the other thing, which I think this is, and this is almost embarrassing because I really want to make it sound like I'm really giving Stallone the business. No, I'm a huge fan of his. He wrote a book called Sly Moves, which, surprise, I've read. Do you remember this? He was the host of this reality TV show. It was on for like a season. It was called The Contender, and it was like American Idol for boxers. Okay, so it was a very obvious thing for him to do. It didn't last a season, but the book was meant to basically promote the show, but really became the autobiography of his life. And one of the details in the book that I've always remembered was he would talk about how he would get cravings for pizza, and what he would do is he would order a pizza, and he would take 2 bites of it, and then he'd throw it away.
Such a waste. Wow.
So I would just get the pizza, just take 2 bites. That's it. Then I would just throw the rest away because, I just, I can't give in to my urges like that.
Well, you can tell that he's on a very low carb diet in this movie,
which he's always constantly reminding us of, because Cobra has a partner, which is crazy because, I mean, even watching the trailer to this movie, which was ubiquitous in the 80s, and, looking at the poster of this movie, this isn't a twofer at all.
No.
But
I forgot he had a partner.
I've seen this film a number of times. I forgot he had a partner until we rewatched it. That's right. He has a partner. Yeah. I think it's Renny Santoni as Sergeant Gonzalez. I mean, the actor is fine, even though he and Stallone wear the exact same clothing for the entire film. The movie does not take place in a day, but never mind. But
the only thing that really he does is Gonzalez likes to eat junk food, and Stallone is always telling him he needs to eat healthier.
Which, again,
it's like a running gag.
It's the running. Is it, you eat that? That's disgusting. I wouldn't eat that.
Have you ever tried fish?
That's some fish and rice. That's what I have. I have protein.
Have you ever had vegetables? It's like,
you just get that high fructose corn syrup. I mean, that stuff is going to kill you. Yeah, it's ridiculous because the sidekick character, I mean, the actor's fine, but I mean, he's there to be shot. Let's just say it. He's there because he's eventually going to get shot. He's dead meat. That's the only reason he's there. This movie isn't called Cobra Gonzalez. It's not Tango and Cash. It's Cobra. So we know this guy. I mean, he's basically just there so Cobra has someone to talk to.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So, all right. They're in the police station, and all the cops are talking about these murders that are happening. Okay, there's these horrific scenes, and the movie I don't think gets too. It's not like it's gory
for its time, though. I mean, this not only was this is true. The film was originally rated X for violence, and they cut it down in 1986. This movie was really violent.
I believe it. But what I'm saying is, it's violent, but it's not like you see an axe going into a body.
It's the only thing you don't see.
It's the only thing you don't see. But it's so violent. It's so horrific. Because you're watching these crazy axe murderer, New World people with like stockings over their faces, basically just like murdering all of these women.
Yeah.
And they're talking about how it's all of the victims are all ages and everything, but they only show them murdering like women in their 20s.
It's very much like an 80s slasher film, like a I would, what you call like an urban 80s slasher film, because it takes place in the city, and it's, although this is like an all white biker gang, and they're primarily killing like young blondes essentially.
Right.
So it's very much in the ilk of something like Vice Squad, where you'll see like a attractive woman get off of work and she's walking to her car absentmindedly in the 80s, which is something that never happened.
They have no situational awareness, and they're like,
just looking at their keys. Oh, it was a good day at work, and they get in their car, and suddenly an axe to the head or whatever. And there's like a montage of these scenes.
Yeah. So the cops are talking about like, we need to get a handle on this. It's out of control, and Cobra's like, they're like, we need to find this guy. He's like, maybe it's more than one guy. They're like, shut up, you don't know anything.
And by the way, we should, something I want to jump to immediately. It's established that one of the members of the New World Gang is a woman. She's played by Lee Garlington. I know her as the waitress in Psycho 2 and 3. She's a good character actress, but talk about lazy writing on Mr. Stallone's part. The name of the character is Nancy Stalk. Yeah. And this is crazy too, because she's a cop by day and an evil gang member by night.
And apparently the lover of the night slasher. Yeah, which is so creepy.
So, well, I mean, I know that's bizarre for you, that the night slasher even, I mean, I think he's a good looking guy myself, but I mean, I get it. I mean, some chicks are into that, But my point being,
what?
Nancy Stalk, the so-called Nancy Stalk, she has the same, other than the fact that she wears, police blues in the daytime.
Yeah, she looks the same.
Exactly the same. I mean,
maybe it's like her hair is down when she's killing people and up when she's a cop.
I mean, for starters, yeah, put her in a scrunchie when you're a serial killer. But yeah, exactly the same.
Same makeup.
I mean, it's I mean, I know this is the 80s, so there wasn't, surveillance cameras everywhere like now. But I mean, my goodness, this is somebody who's just waiting to get discovered. Mm-hmm. And it's to the movie's insane logic that, I mean, do they even find out? I mean, there's no like big reveal. It's suddenly like, oh, you're evil.
Right.
It's crazy how long that thread is unresolved.
It takes forever because we know that she's
working for both sides. Yeah, and there's all these scenes where, it's like, okay, Nancy, like help us with the perp, like gotta protect her, and she's like, she's in the background of a lot of scenes, she's following. So it's like, it's an eerie idea, except the tension isn't there because it's almost like it's neither here nor there.
Well, and
frankly.
She's just there to tell the gang where the victim, who they want to be the victim, where she's going to be. But the reason there's no tension, I think, is because she doesn't stand a chance next to Cobra.
Yeah.
She's like a slightly overweight, I don't know, how old is she?
I think she's probably in her late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, she
started late as a serial killer.
Once she...
It's like, being a cop is all right, but you know what I've always wanted to do?
But I mean, once he finds out, she's a goner.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's funny too. I mean, Mr. Stallone, you got to have a good actor paired against him in a fight scene, because it doesn't matter that Sly isn't the tallest person on the planet. I mean, his presence is so powerful. I mean, like, I always think of this. He did a movie called Cliffhanger, which I love.
Oh, I love Cliffhanger.
Yeah, and remember, like, who the bad guy? It was John Lithgow.
Yes.
At the end of the film, it's Stallone and Lithgow fighting, and even to say that out loud sounds so silly. But the thing is, Lithgow is so vicious, and he's such a brilliant actor. Like, he holds the screen, and you actually think for a second, like, Lithgow could take this guy, because that's the kind of actor he is. No one in this movie, not even the Night Slasher, obviously, or Night Stalker, has a chance against Marion.
You were
Cobretti.
right, Slasher.
Night Slasher, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where I thought this movie, the script writing just kind of went even more off the rails, because, okay, we have a model
played by the lovely Bridgette Nielsen, who at the time was married to Mr. Stallone.
Okay, so there's this, I don't know, but some scenes of her modeling.
Yeah, it's a music video montage. This is the height of MTV, and Stallone had just done Rocky IV, and I love Rocky IV, but really the movie is, I think, 3 dramatic scenes, and the rest is all training montages, nonstop.
Okay, but it's her modeling, and then what, murder at the same time?
Right.
Happening?
It's Cobretti, Marion Cobretti and his partner
Oh, they're
Gonzalez. They're
trying
driving
to-
around. They're asking. So it's a montage
Oh yeah,
of
they're
of
trying
Stallone.
to get information.
I'm sure they looked at the footage like, okay, like nobody cares about this. So let's have the scenes of Stallone, like, you know, with pen and paper in hand, go like, have you heard of this guy? Like, we'll put music over that and we'll cut it with Bridgette Nielsen in these various stages of undress and wigs,
Yes.
dancing in front of a giant robot.
Yeah, giant robots. It's the weirdest thing. So then
It's like Popular Science magazine.
I
Like,
guess.
it's their swimsuit issue. Omni magazine. Yeah, it's weird.
So she leaves that shoot and is driving and sees what?
But she drives by
One of the
a New
murders.
World killing spree.
Yeah. And so she's driving like really like it's weird. She's driving under an overpass and she sees the night slasher in the middle of the road and he like stares at her and she sees him and then she just like drives off and then
Nancy Stalk.
Oh my gosh.
Officer Stalk.
Couldn't even say that word. I was stuttering. Sorry. She's like, write down the license plate.
I'm sure that was, by the way, I'm sure they ADR'd in that afterwards. Like, can you get into the recording booth and say write down the license plate? Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they following her?
Right. So she finds out who she is. Yeah. And now they're going to try and kill this girl because she's seen his face. And that is the whole premise for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And it doesn't really work because she didn't specifically see them do anything bad. She just saw them and thought, that's funny. Because she sees the Night Stalker... Stalker or slasher? I keep screwing that up. Sorry, the slasher. Slasher. So she sees the night slasher standing in the middle of the street. I mean, I've had this experience. You know, I'm leaving a movie. It's like 11:30 at night. There's like some drunken dude just kind of stumbling around in the street, and I kind of very slowly drive past him. Same thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't have blood in his hands. He doesn't have a decapitated head. He's just like, she's just like, that's funny. And he's like, I have to kill you.
Yeah. and because right on the side of the road is the dead victim, right?
And she doesn't even see that.
She doesn't even see that.
Yeah, so like she, in the night slasher's eyes, is a dead end. Not dead end. She's a witness, but like this doesn't...
A loose end.
Loose end, that's what I was trying to say. Mm-hmm. Dead end, loose end. Yeah, she's a loose end, but like it's like, if a squirrel ran by, like, gotta get that squirrel.
Well, I'm just thinking, if they really wanted her to see something, to be an actual witness, they should have had her see something.
It would have been much more dramatic and interesting, yeah, as opposed to this where it's, anybody, how many people drove past that?
Yeah.
Get that license plate! It's like a bus full of nuns.
It didn't make any sense because the rest of the movie is now Stallone.
We must kill Bridgette Nielsen.
Yes,
right.
And he has to protect her.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this was really the best story.
Well, by the way, that's one of the things about this movie that's legendary. So it's based on a novel, which is hilarious. Paul Gosling wrote this book called Fair Game. It's been made into a movie twice. This is one of them. So Stallone took the novel and he wrote a screenplay, and the studio said this was too expensive. It's too violent. We want to do it as a comedy. So I'm kind of mangling it a little bit, but basically what happens, they took his screenplay and they turned it into Beverly Hills Cop for Eddie Murphy. That movie was...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very different. So Stallone said, like, well, I'll show you what a movie could be. So like Stallone took his rewrite of Beverly Hills Cop and made this film. Meanwhile, a decade later, they went back to the original novel, made a far more faithful adaptation of it, and made the film, also called Fair Game, starring Cindy Crawford and William Baldwin. If you want to watch that movie and do an episode, I'm all for that movie.
Why? Why do you want to watch that?
Because it is super tacky and hilarious.
Okay, we should totally watch it.
Oh, yeah, I got Fair Game. Yeah,
right.
We'll do Fair Game. Anyway.
I'm going to write that down.
Let's write it down right now.
That episode.
FAI.
That episode is coming up, guys.
Fair Game. Yeah, it's hilarious. And it's, it was the first and last film to ever star Cindy Crawford. It was supposed to be, it applies to this. It was supposed to be Cindy Crawford and Stallone. And Stallone said, no. So then it became William Baldwin.
This is what I think happened with Bridgette Nielsen.
Okay.
Is her career wasn't like really going anywhere, like super fast. Was it?
Well, go ahead. Tell me your theory.
Okay,
Tell me why you're wrong.
Okay, tell me why I'm wrong. And so Sylvester's like, well, honey, I'll put you in my movie and you can be a model. And then, no, was she already big?
That's kind of true. It's pretty close. Her first...
See,
It's close. No, it's close. All right. No, I mean, I think for me, it goes a little darker than that.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know a lot about Bridgette Nielsen. She and I haven't talked in a while. So she starred in one of the earliest Marvel comic movies, a movie called Red Sonja, which people forget. It's based on a comic book. It was her and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but she got top billed for that. That was her movie. She played Red Sonja. It's a sword and sorcery movie. It was a bomb, but she was on the poster. She became, she became a name. After that, she played Ivan Drago's wife in Rocky IV. And by the way, let me just give her all the credit that she deserves. She's great in that. She's really, really great in that. And it was around that time that she and Stallone met up, got married, and then, of course, the next film she did was this movie. They got divorced not long after this movie was made, and coincidentally, her career kind of took a dive. I'm not saying Mr. Stallone called every studio in Hollywood like, you're not working with Bridgette Nielsen. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it's interesting that she was high profile. And I got to say, decades later, she's in Creed 2, where she again plays Ivan Drago's estranged wife, and she's great in that. Great. I mean, I'm not. This isn't like the lost Meryl Streep, okay? But Nielsen clearly had chops, great presence, clearly a capable actress. This movie doesn't really show that, but I mean,
this movie shows her with
it's a girlfriend role.
Crazy wig.
Well, we'll get to the wigs, but my point being that I do find it dubious that she was on a hot streak and then she got a divorce and then the hot streak ended. I don't like that. I don't know why that happened, if it's coincidence or not, but I do find that really uncool. We should call
the Inquirer and find out. Okay.
I'm sure they've got a story.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So the wigs. So Nielsen she had like a style almost akin to Grace Jones, very strength, the strength of her, and also kind of androgynous. She always had this really short haircut, this short blonde haircut, and it's great. But the character, obviously, in this case, I mean, she's playing, she's a victim who needs to be saved by Stallone. It's not
But this wig is huge.
It's very film noir. It's meant to look, I don't know. I like the wig. She looks lovely in the wig. And if anything, it gives the character vulnerability because Bridgette Nielsen never looked
and even
like
the
a
night slasher
damsel.
is like, I like your hair. And then he tries to kill her.
Right.
So it's like kind of like, is this a joke?
I get, yeah, maybe they're like, someone's like, hey, can you make a joke? Bridgette hates this wig, so if you could make a joke about the hair, that'd be great.
Okay, so she, basically, they track her down after work and into this parking garage, and there's some kind of fight that goes down, and she escapes somehow and ends up in the hospital, and this is where she meets Cobra.
Yeah. Is it before or after where they attack Cobra at his apartment? Is that before or after?
Oh no, that's later.
That's later. Okay, all right. So yeah, he goes to the hospital and saves her. Not saves her. This is where he meets her.
Yeah, this is where he meets her, and he's kind of like, this is where he realizes she has information about this crazy night slasher killer. Yeah. And so he tells her you'll be safe here in this hospital, and he tells his partner to stay with her, and then he goes back to his apartment and is going through fingerprints and photos at his place. He's not even at the station.
The police chief is like, Cobra, just take it home. It's fine. just fine. I know you're going to look for it. You're going to take it anyway. Just take it. Whatever.
Does he just have his own set of files?
I could go down to the station, or I could just do it right here from home.
It's so weird. Are you going to cut up some more pizza? What's happening? And then he gets a call from his partner, and he's like, oh, I'm back at the station. They told me you wanted to come. And he's like, I didn't call you. And,
dun, dun.
Yeah. And then the New World people break into his apartment.
Yeah, this is great. It's a fight scene right next to a glowing Pepsi sign. The Pepsi sign.
Product placement for beverages.
Well, this is crazy. I mean, because this is a violent movie. This is not the Stallone of Rocky IV. This is the Stallone of Nighthawks. This is a violent, crazy violent movie. But yeah, it's the fight takes place in front of a glowing, quite attractively and unnaturally placed Pepsi logo.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you could kind of cut the scene into a Pepsi commercial, but albeit a very violent one.
Yeah, I don't know. Pepsi and Coors Light, everybody was in on this movie.
I mean, it's just funny because, Pepsi famously, like, they wouldn't let Madonna do that video after, the one where, it's a Pepsi commercial and she's dancing around burning crosses. But this they had no problem with.
Oh, okay.
Hypocrisy, yes.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. But, okay, so he totally beats up these guys.
Of course.
There's two of them. They no match for Cobra. But then, so then before this, though, you see the night slasher and the cop lady, and she's like talking to him all like seductive, and I don't even know what he's doing, but she's like, I'll get her for you. And he's like, she's mine. I mean, they're just so weird. And he dyes his hair black. And then because
that makes such a world of difference.
I mean, a face only a mother could love, really.
Oh man, listen to you.
He's scary. He's super scary.
If you got to know him.
Okay, so he goes to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because he knows, like, they have a plan to get.
And on his way to the hospital, he murders a dude for his glasses, which he wears as a disguise. And by the way, it doesn't hide him at all. He just looks like a sick serial killer with glasses.
Yeah, and he pretends to be a janitor.
Yes.
So he's going around the hospital trying to find Bridgette Nielsen.
Yeah.
And then she's in the bathroom, thankfully, when he finally finds her, because he just, like, slashes the curtain in her room.
Yeah, it's great. It's very,
and then
very
she comes out of the bathroom and she, of course, screams like a maniac and goes back into the bathroom. And it's kind of like the scene from
The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they thought of when they did it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a very similar dynamic, but I think it's really well done. It is scary. It's very intense, and it's very physically daunting for both of them. I like the scene a lot because what doesn't work are the cutaways of Stallone running through this lobby, which are so silly because apparently it's the longest lobby in the history of hospitals, and Stallone is just doing this run with his huge black overcoat, running, and it doesn't look like he's getting anywhere. Just that he's like, gotta take my time, gotta run through this lobby. And meanwhile, Bridgette Nielsen is almost getting slashed to smithereens. But I think the scene really works.
Yeah, well, she goes out a different door that is blocked and pulls the fire alarm, and so that's how
smart.
She escapes. And then she finds Cobra, and they embrace, and he's like,
say, I'm tired. I've been running so much.
He's like, I'm going to take you to a safe house. So that's like the next step. And then, of course,
Officer Stalk.
She's going to go with them.
Right.
Of course. She's been assigned to this case. Oh, that's convenient.
It might be a little more ominous if the camera just doesn't linger on her too long and they just don't give this actress enough to do. I mean, it's a scary idea and it's an intriguing idea. Again, like this person who has time to it's a Dexter situation because she's pretending to be searching for this gang, but really at night she's a part of this gang. So it's a cool idea and it's a creepy idea and she's playing it well.
But we don't know why she's the worst.
Cobra is the only person in this movie who has any inner life at all, if that, because no one in this, it's a lot of one-note characters who you could sum up in a sentence, if that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the next day and they're going to drive to some safe house, right? Is this that crazy chase scene in his fancy car? Yeah. And I mean, there's a part where he literally has a nitro button on the inside of his car. I mean, it's like the first Fast and the Furious.
I love that it's actually labeled.
It
like,
is labeled.
It's great. Like, even Dominic Toretto's like, I don't need a label. No, like, Cobra has a label just so it's not the ejector seat, it's not like the roof opening up. No, this is the nitro.
Yeah. So he, she's in the car with him. Of course, I mean, she's probably about ready to throw up from this chase and he just has to get away from the bad guys because the night slasher is in one of the cars chasing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then his car gets totaled, like gets wrecked.
Tragically. It's a nice car.
Yeah, it's a really nice car. Mm-hmm. And so
it's got a license plate that says Awesome 50.
Awesome 50. So now they have to regroup and they're in a truck and they're where I don't even know where they're going. They end up in some tiny town outside of LA.
This is a strange scene. Yeah.
And it's is it even a town? It's so weird.
It's like this little tourist trap, and they're stopping on the side of the road, and there's a lady who's selling, knickknacks
like
and whatnot.
tchotchkes,
yeah. And this is where we get, I mean, I guess like, from the law of screenwriting, you need to give your audience a little break from all the tension and excitement. And Stallone thought it'd be a great idea to give his character a little more backstory, which is just to tell us what his full name is.
Yeah. So the partner, he's like, go say this to Cobra. And so she comes over to him and she says his whole name, which is Marion Cobretti.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I don't remember what he says about that, but I could just picture him writing this screenplay and being like, I'm going to give myself a girl name.
This is going to be hilarious. See, Mario Cobretti? It's too Italian. Is it Marion? Oh, that's hilarious. That's like a girl's name.
Like
That's funny.
Marion. But like, I'm a dude.
I don't know. Marion Cobretti is an awesome name. If it's supposed to be a moment of
levity,
it doesn't carry at all.
No.
No, in fact, everything about this guy is so cool. It's not like, oh, that's your name now.
It's not like he's gonna be made fun of now.
No, his name it's not like Sherman Merman. No,
Right.
It's Marion Cobretti, for Pete's sake. His nickname is Cobra. They refer to him as the Cobra, as in get the Cobra.
Yeah. So they there's one part where he's having dinner or snack or whatever with Bridgette Nielsen.
Can I ask you something really quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, before we move on. Like the end of the tchotchke scene, it ends where remember, because it's an old lady who's running the little stand. And,
he has like a bobblehead.
And he's looking at the bobblehead and he's like imitating the bobblehead.
Yeah.
It's like, is this an outtake? And then he looks at the lady who actually has like a second of screen time, who's like this elderly lady running the shack. And he goes, sorry, no sale. And he walks off. And I wonder, was that like his mom? Was that like his aunt?
It's so crazy.
Like, why did this lady got like a second of screen time? This had to have been like a relative or something.
I hope this actually wasn't like a real tchotchke shack and he just like...
You think you go there today, it's like featured in Cobra. Yeah, we call it the Cobra Shack.
I'd be like, stop touching all my tchotchkes and get out of here if you're not going to buy anything. Yeah, it was so funny.
Especially a creepy guy who only wears aviator sunglasses, has leather gloves, and a black leather jacket on a hot day.
Yeah. So Bridgette Nielsen is having some French fries with a ton of ketchup, and he's noticing.
More food jokes.
Yeah, more food jokes. Oh, yeah, that's probably why. Because he's like, that's not healthy.
We gotta have levity. We got the killing, we got the shootings, and the axings. Like, we gotta have levity. We gotta have levity.
He's just
in the
looking
script.
at her pouring like high fructose corn syrup ketchup all over these fries and just like having an orthorexic moment where he just like can't handle it. Are you ever involved?
And meanwhile, she's squirting the ketchup. Like, are you involved?
Yeah. And he goes, like, with a woman? Like, yeah, with a woman. And he was basically like, I don't think a woman could put up with me. She'd have to be a little bit crazy. So that's all we know about his personal life.
Obviously, this movie wasn't progressive enough for it to be, so well, how about a man? No, not at all. Because God forbid Stallone has his masculinity challenged in this movie.
So, okay, so then they share a hotel room because he's protecting her. Right? And
as you do. You and your witness share the room
Of
together.
course.
It's not out of the question.
No, which, I mean, if that was me, I'd be like, you are not leaving. I'm not leaving your side. Like, there is some crazy killer out to get me. So, but what I think is funny is he thinks she can sleep while he's over, like, cleaning weapons and making all this noise.
That's true.
Yeah. And he's like, you can't sleep. It's like, well, no, you're over here like...
Let me fire up a warning shot. Oh, did I wake you?
Exactly. Like, no, I can't sleep, you crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even sleep if, like, I wake up when Barry opens the bedroom door. Like, I'm not going to be able to sleep if he's, like, putting together, like, 25 guns.
Yeah, it's one thing because this happened a couple of times where you try to sleep and, Beatrice, being our little daughter, being the little girl that she is, she loves to have balloons everywhere. It's one thing if I step on a balloon and it pops. I mean, this is like, in her case, in Bridgette Nielsen's character's case, we haven't even said her name. this would be like having a balloon pop like right next to your ear
Yeah.
dealing with this guy.
So then she just decides to just watch him, you know.
Ingrid? Her name is Ingrid? Did you know that? I remember they said her last name Knudsen, but her name is Ingrid? I didn't even... oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't think they ever say her
It's
name.
neither here nor there. Please continue.
Yeah. So she's like, come over here. And then it's like, he's like, okay. So they kiss or whatever. And she's like, I think we should see each other when this is all over. And he's like, do you think that's a good idea? I can't do Stallone. My Stallone impressions are terrible.
And mine are so good.
Yeah, yours are way better. And she's like, I definitely think it's a good idea. And that's the end of the whole, like,
Yeah.
it's really kind
Stallone's
of,
like, Ed, perfect.
yeah.
It's ambiguous.
It's
levity. Just levity.
well, it's a little bit of a, I don't know, anticlimactic, really.
Yeah, I don't know. This is similar to a script that he wrote not long after, in fact, the following year, called Over the Top, where his character Lincoln Hawk, or Hawks, is discussing with his son the reason he broke up with the wife. Similar thing. I think it's either one of two things. Stallone wants to keep the character's tortured psyche a mystery, or it's just laziness.
I think it's laziness, you know. And then the next day is the final showdown.
The final. I mean, the movie is it's a little under 90 minutes. It's pretty tight. Even the scenes that are exposition filled, or just even the downtime scenes, the movie really, the momentum is very good. It's a very tightly made film.
Yeah. So
probably to the detriment of the plot, but still.
That's true. Well, and okay, so Cobra sees Stock making phone calls.
Officer Stock.
Yeah, I think we know that she's an officer.
And this is pretty ridiculous too. He's
Yeah.
like, so, who you calling? Oh, no one.
I'm just checking in at what's going on at home. He's like, oh, you couldn't do that in your room? Like, oh, the phone's not working.
He's like, makes sense to me. She walks off. End of scene.
Yeah, no, I think he knows.
You think?
Yeah, I think he
He
does.
doesn't do anything though. He's Cobra. I don't think he knows, because I think if Marion Cobretti knew that that Officer
He's
Stock was
suspicious.
actually
No,
stalking.
because he sees her
Yeah.
when Bridgette Nielsen is eating her nasty fries and ketchup.
Yes.
Well, according to him, I thought it looked good.
Agreed.
But
Yeah.
he sees her in the restaurant on the phone, and the wheels are turning, and he's wondering what's going on with this chick.
Does Officer Stock have a boyfriend? I mean, like, I didn't even know, like, she went out. It's crazy. Oh, well. I wonder who the killer is.
Yeah. So then when he sees her on the payphone outside of the motel, I think he's putting two and two together slowly.
Respectfully, I think you're right in the sense that I think that's what Stallone intended, but I think because Stallone is playing this character at such a low key, for me it didn't register at all that whole aspect of it, the dual identity, just doesn't get resolved in any kind of way.
Yeah, it could have been better. It could have been written better.
We'll get to what happens with her.
Well,
But yeah,
it's very again, her death is anticlimactic, I think.
Yeah, they're spending a lot of time establishing that, like, she's living quite the dual life. I mean, this is like Flashdance, welder by day, dancer by night. Similar idea, that it's kind of crazy. Only that movie was better developed, strangely enough.
Yeah. Did Bridgette Nielsen have Flashdance hair under that wig? Is that why she?
No, she had the short blonde spiky hair.
Oh.
Yeah, the way you see it briefly in the montage where you see her real hair.
It's really short.
It's really short and blonde.
Like a pixie.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was her look.
That's why she
Yeah,
had to
it's
wear
a
the
very
wig.
strong, like, again, like I use the word masculine and respectful. I mean, that was her look. I mean,
I thought it was longer there because she's had multiple wigs in that photo shoot.
Yeah, I mean, at one point she's a redhead. At one point she's got like Tina Turner hair.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. We don't have to go over that again, but
Let's go over each of the hairs. So she's a redhead.
Okay, so all of the biker gang roll into
new
town.
world. Yep.
Yeah. And they just start like killing random people, not just going after
It's that kind of a movie.
Ingrid.
Yeah.
They're just like, someone goes into the police station and kills one of those policemen. Like,
They cling their axes together in murder time.
Yeah.
And the movie's body count just goes way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this just starts a shootout and a chase, and they end up in What do they even
like
end up
every
at?
80s movie, it's either a factory that produces smoke or sparks. This is like the ending of most action movies from the 1980s. It's like basically where they film music videos, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's running around trying to kill everybody.
And they each have individual one-on-one fights, so it's not like a big rumble. Yeah, like Stallone, Cobra eventually encounters Officer Stock, and
Takes
instead
it
of
down.
it should be sad. It should be sad. Hey, like I thought you were the one killing people.
I thought you were on my team, and you're actually a killer. What's
So,
with
like,
the dual identity?
Who was that guy who called on the phone the other night? Yeah, nothing. It's just like they fight. He kills her. And like, oh, okay. I guess that
Then
wasn't
She's gone.
okay. Moving on. Yeah.
Well, the only foreshadowing in this scene are the large hooks that are like going across.
Of course.
Like, like
Right.
what are those hooks for? Are they for like livestock? Like, are they for metal? Like, what's happening?
And considering the only other thing in this factory are sparks and smoke
And fire.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at the honey baked ham factory. That kind of sounds like what we had in the back, because we'd put the turkeys on the hook and then we, cover them with honey and sugar, and then we'd flamethrow them, which was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see a honey baked ham factory sign on this factory. Considering that this movie has promos from Coors and Pepsi, you figured honey baked ham would be in on it.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted their
good name
business.
sullied by
Yeah,
Cobra.
Exactly. Or the Night Slasher. So the Night Slasher has some dialogue at the end.
Yes, he does.
And
this
calling him a pig, and that basically the new world is coming, and it's so creepy.
Well, this is
and that
yeah.
like they're not going to be able to kill everybody because these new world people are taking over.
Yeah, let me pause for a second and talk about this. I appreciate you bringing this specific thing up, because I kind of I've been thinking about it as much as I forgot that it was coming to talk about. The Night Slasher makes the assertion. He basically says that we are going to basically I'm going to get off. I'm not going to be in jail. I'm going to be, member of the insanity defense. He makes this whole thing about guys like me don't go to.
He's like, you're a cop.
Yeah.
You can't kill me because you're under an oath.
Yeah.
You've taken an oath, and you can't kill me in cold blood because even I deserve justice, basically.
Yeah, I'm due process and all that. And this is it, because this is one of the things that made the movie so controversial when it came out, in addition to how crazy violent this movie is. One of the things about this film that got people really worked up is this movie is pro-fascism. This movie is pro, vigilante violence. The movie exists in the same world as not only Dirty Harry, but also the film that came out the following year, which is my favorite movie of '87, which is RoboCop. RoboCop was a satire about the kind of guys that Cobra is, the kind of guy who, walks into a hostage situation, mutilates the villain, leaves rubble and smoke everywhere, walks away and goes, "You're welcome." That's basically what RoboCop was making fun of. But this movie, is not only does this film, if it's satire, it doesn't really come across that well. But it's interesting because, on the one hand, I like that Stallone wants to have social commentary in his movies. Famously, Rambo: First Blood Part 2 had that line about do we get to win this time? Very controversial line about Vietnam. I think it's fine that Stallone is trying to bring real world issues into his film. This movie, I excuse it because the whole thing is such a far-fetched fantasy, because we're not talking about a real situation here. We're talking about a crazy, awful, vile serial killer.
Right, and it doesn't
this doesn't apply to real life in any way.
It doesn't make sense what he says when he says, "You have to take me in." Clearly he could get off on a self-defense, like Cobra could say, well, it was self-defense. That's why I killed him. Because this guy's not going to let him take him in.
It's completely nuts. And
so it doesn't make it. It's not a good argument.
Well,
in this situation.
Yeah, and Cobra says the line again, which a lot of people say this is a very loaded line. Although it's really, it's just one of those tough guy lines where Cobra says, "This is where the law ends and I start," which I freaking love. But again, you can't take this movie seriously, people. Like anyone who looked at this film, this movie is irresponsible and it's promoting policemen, is no, it's Cobra is, I mean, he's barely as plausible as Indiana Jones, let alone R2-D2. I mean, everything about this film is such a fantasy. We're talking about good and evil here. We're not talking about nuance in real life and real social justice or injustice.
Because he's part of the zombie squad.
What does that even mean? I still don't know what that means.
I think the zombie squad just means they work at night, maybe.
They're like the Expendables of cops. They're who you call when no one else will help you. I get that, but why do they call them the zombie squad?
That's why it's so ridiculous. So yeah, when the night slasher is kind of like giving him his speech, making it seem like, oh, I've like outsmarted you. It's like, no, you haven't.
Well, it's weird too that he all of a sudden the night slasher becomes like Johnny Cochran. It's like he suddenly has all this like legal advice, like, well, I'll do 2 years, but then like I'm gonna come out and get you because thanks to due process.
Yeah, you basically have to take me in, and then they're gonna find me insane, and then I won't go to jail, and then I'm probably gonna be in an institution.
It's weird. Like this character has been inarticulate for 85 minutes, and now all of a sudden he has like a legal defense.
I know, it's so true. And the whole time I'm thinking, just smoke this guy. This guy is disgusting. Like, he's so awful.
Well, tell everyone what happens to this guy.
So they fight, him and Cobra, and then at some point, Stallone like picks him up and puts him on this hook and like literally puts it into his back. And the guy's yelling and he goes into the fire and gets burned alive.
It's a cool idea because the New World gang reeks of Satanists, right? So this is like he's on their turf. He's basically in hell. There's sparks everywhere. There's fire everywhere. There's smoke everywhere. So I kind of like where this movie, you know, it's not subtle, folks, but it is like Cobra is in the belly of hell to defeat the devil on his own terms. Exactly. It does. I'm sure that's what like this is going to be like Greek mythology and stuff.
Yes, it's very poetic.
It's like the end of Staying Alive, which he directed. It's like Satan's Alley. Exactly.
Yeah, very poetic.
Yeah.
So that's basically it.
That's it. He and Bridgette get on a motorcycle and they ride off and the credits start rolling.
But he does get to punch out, like, there's this like...
this suit and a tie, of course.
Nerdy cop who keeps getting in his face, like, throughout the whole movie and just kind of like...
You're a loose cannon.
Yeah. Like,
you're going down, Cobra.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, you have an attitude problem.
Right.
He's just kind of a weaselly character. And finally, Stallone just punches him out. And he's like, yeah, no hard feelings. And then takes off.
Because it's got to end with the comedy. Levity.
Yeah. And then the credits roll and him and Ingrid are on a motorcycle riding off into the sunset.
Yeah, and then her earlier conversation is very haunting. It's like, yeah, will this work? Is this the question that Cobra brought up? It's a really good question. I mean, do they have anything in common other than the fact that they've been chasing this guy?
Yeah, and other than the fact that she's been completely traumatized by this like violent serial killer chasing her.
What's that line from Speed? Relationships based on extreme circumstances
never work out.
Yeah, I think I would say that applies to this situation. Yeah,
Keanu Reeves bringing so much wisdom to this podcast.
Well, who would have thought decades later we'd still be speaking about Mr. Reeves with such love and devotion?
Yeah,
unlike the words and wisdom of Marion Cobretti. Marion Cobretti.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, all right, if you could give this movie some kind of alternate ending or change a scene, do you have any thoughts about what you would do?
I would have it where they're riding off on a motorcycle and, it's a movie. So of course they can hear each other perfectly well, even though they're roaring in a motorcycle, because that's what movies are. And that's what this kind of movie is. So they're talking and he's like, so am I going to meet your family? They're driving by the countryside. The music's really upbeat. And she's like, yeah, you meet my mom. But you've already met my sister. He's like, oh, yeah, who's your sister? And she takes out a knife. She slashes his throat. She says, stalk. And then cut to black.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. So they were working together this whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
To get to Cobra?
That's right. Had to take down the Cobra.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
And ridiculous. And there's no way Stallone would have gone for that.
No. He'd be like, Cobra can't die. What if I want to do a sequel?
I mean, I'm never gonna die. My characters aren't gonna die. That's for sure. Can I just say, like, I've been kind of holding back when I talk about this film because on the one hand, yeah, it's ridiculously violent. It's pulpy. Stallone's screenplay is malnourished, to say the least.
But he loves health food. How can that be? That's crazy.
Some fish and some rice. That's all you need. Maybe do a push-up or two. Look, the real star of this movie is Rick Waite. He's the cinematographer. And Rick Waite, I mean, interestingly enough, he shot a bunch of Walter Hill films. He later was a traitor and did some Steven Seagal films. But, like, this is a beautiful looking movie. The sunsets in this film are crimson red. The night scene, I mean, this is a crisp, gorgeous looking film.
Watch the same movie.
This is a good looking film. Gritty. It's gritty, but it's really good looking. There's the scene where the cops all meet outside and it looks like a scene out of a Michael Mann film. Like, it's a really good looking film. And by the way, that car chase scene, one of the best.
Okay, the car chase
one of the
scene
best in cinema.
Was awesome.
Period. He drives off a second story unit and lands. At one point, the car chase becomes a gunfight. It's fantastic. It's better than everything in any Fast and Furious film. I'd put it up there with any of the great, like, William Friedkin chase scenes. Now, that scene, it's the centerpiece of the film. It happens at the midpoint, and I tell you, like, every time I see it, I'm like, you know what, this movie is dumb and it's half-baked, but as an action movie, I think it really delivers. I like this film a lot, even though I know it's pulp nonsense, but I think it looks great, and I think where it counts, it works. And you have Stallone, who is a great actor, who unfortunately at this point was total an egocentric movie star, and he would even admit to that. But, I mean, let's face it, when the camera's on him, you get it. Like, okay, I get it. This is why this guy is still one of the biggest movie stars ever.
It's appropriate that our power went out for the last 10 minutes. We were still able to record because we're not recording like...
And I got to tell you my scary version of the ending in the dark.
On the internet.
Yeah.
But when we were watching this movie last night, the power took it out at least 3 times.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But it really said something that Julia wanted to see how this movie ended so much. She's like, as soon as the power comes back on, we're going to keep watching Cobra. Because I was willing to just be like, we don't need to finish this. Because
the Night Slasher was scaring me so much that I wanted to see him get his due.
How did you know he was going to get his due? I mean, don't you think Stallone could have died? No, of course not.
Oh, yeah. Come on. You know he's taken out all the bad guys.
How many stars would you give this?
I think I give it 3.
Me too. I give it 3 stars, which I'm sure most of my friends who are far more accomplished and prestigious film critics, I'm sure they'd be horrified to know I'd give this movie 3 stars. But again, the cinematography of Rick Waite, one of the greatest car chases of all time, and Stallone, for better or for worse, in his element, for me, it's an easy 3 stars.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. The reason it's not more are all the things we already talked about. I think there's some plot holes. I think there's some things that don't make sense.
And it's distasteful, to say the least. I mean, there were a lot of...
It's really violent.
It's weird. There were a lot of action/horror movies. Like, a lot of them, during this time, Charles Bronson did a lot of these kind of movies. Like, one was called 10 to Midnight. These, like, police movie slasher movies. And this is one of the better ones, although, like, I wish the villain and the villains, plural, were just better defined, because it's the gang thing is interesting. The idea that every one of these gang members, apparently they all have day jobs, because there's no like, dental plan with the New World. That could have been richer, more interesting. The idea that the people of LA, are two-sided, that they're one thing one day, but they're different at night. There's a lot here that could have worked. And even the thing that you brought up at the beginning, like, I love the question you brought up was there's a point early in the film where you asked me, like, is Cobra the Night Slasher? I'm like, that's a great question. Because for most of the film, he's wearing the exact same clothes. He's always dressed in black. I mean, he looks like, the lead singer of Slayer, and
he could have been the double agent.
Yeah. And that's a cool idea. It's a really cool idea. And again, like Dexter,
but of course it was Lieutenant Stalk or whoever.
Yeah, Lieutenant Stalk. Yeah, which is such a cheeseball touch on Stallone's part. He's written better screenplays than Cobra, thankfully, but But he's also made movies so much worse than this, which is not a way of excusing it or giving it a backhanded compliment. I do think this movie works in spite of Stallone's dim-witted screenplay, and despite a movie that probably could have benefited from being at least 10 minutes longer, giving us just a little more,
a little bit more,
a little more meat on the bone. Yeah,
yeah, I agree. It could have been longer, but
when they're in the car together, or when Bridgette Nielsen is dancing in front of that robot, this movie really delivers.
That whole scene, I was so confused. All right, well, I think that covers this week's episode of Cobra. Is that it? You have anything else you want to say?
Good night, listeners, and remember, crime is disease, and I'm the cure.
Good night, everybody.